Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask an Assistant, the podcast for executive assistants and the people that love us. I'm your host, Jess Lindgren. Let's get to work. This week's episode, it is midway through Q3, and it's time for Roughly Quarterly. I feel like I should have like a little jingle or a sound effect or something, but it's early days for the podcast. We'll get there. So Roughly Quarterly time. It's the midpoint of Q3, just about to tip into Q4. We've done this a couple times already this year. Ask an Assistant episode 8 was your template refresh, your Roughly Quarterly template refresh. Episode Ask an Assistant 20 is your Roughly Quarterly clean out of large files. And today's episode, Ask an Assistant 30, is the subscription audit. And what I mean by that is all of those fun little services that you find throughout the course of the year, those things that you maybe needed some kind of software or platform for like a month and you signed up for the free trial, totally intending to cancel it. Maybe you set yourself a little calendar reminder. Maybe the company did you the courtesy of sending you a, hey, your subscription is about to renew reminder email. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? But either way, you found yourself in subscription, I don't know, heck, and just your credit card is getting hit with tens or hundreds or thousands of dollars every month, every quarter, every year. And that stuff adds up. So take some time today and sit down and just clear your schedule, go through your credit card, your checking account line by line, look at the things that are being used and ask the people in your department, ask the people in your company, who's still actually using this? There are definitely some things that when I recently did this, there were a handful of things that were definitely still being used and things that were not terribly expensive, which was great, but definitely some things that have not been used for months, if not years. And I even found one item that was still attached to an old employee's credit card, someone who hadn't worked at our company for, I don't know, 3 years, and something was still being charged to their old credit card number. I have no idea how that card is still active. That was my next call the next day, was to our credit card company to say, hey, this person doesn't work here anymore. Please cancel this card. But thankfully, the charge was quite low. It was, I think, either $2.99 or $3.99 a month. But either way, like that over, let's just, because I'm not great with off the dome math. I can do back of the napkin math, but let's just say for sake of conversation, $4 a month times 12 months equals $48 times 3 years. So thankfully only looking around $150 for those 3 years where it was being charged, but still that $150, that's money for literally anything else. It's money that you could have spent on anything at all. Instead, it was money that went to a service that was no longer being used. So definitely in the service's best interest to keep us on as a low paying, ran under the radar charge for so long. But definitely a bummer for us because there were definitely some things that had not been used for a while that definitely cost more than $3 or $4 a month. Let me tell you what. So, typically the credit card, the bank statement, all that stuff, it's stuff that I have access to personally. Being in a very small company, you kind of wear 100 different hats every day. But thankfully, it's not my purview. Like we have a bookkeeper, we have an accountant, we have people that are more in charge of this than I am. Not trying to say this wasn't my job, because I definitely could have looked at this at any point over the last 3+ years to say, hey, is anybody using these services? It was just kind of something where lots of little charges, you don't really stop and think twice about it. You're just like, somebody's probably using that. So it was really nice to sit down, just go through line by line, literally like 2 or 3 years worth of credit card statement to just see what are we being charged for, how often, who's charging us for it, what does the service actually do? I found one service that we have been paying for since 2019. I asked literally every person that had worked at the company in the past 3 or 4 years. Do you know what this is? Do you know what this is for? Do you know who's using this? Because it was a website hosting related product. However, GoDaddy bought this company at some point in the last several years. So I'm not even able to log in to this company to pull up invoices. Literally, all I had was a trail of successful PayPal charges. And just once a year, they would charge us a couple $100. And to me, like, that's why I said, like, literally go through 2 or 3 or 5 or however many years worth of credit card statement, checking account statement, look for those recurring charges, see what the companies are, what the service does, find out, like, literally just point blank, person by person, do you use any of these services? This one in particular is still a mystery to us. Again, because it is a website hosting company, I definitely wanted to track down and make sure that I wasn't going to like break our main web presence by turning this off. So just person by person, even touched base with a couple of independent contractors that we've worked with over the years, people that have helped us do some website related stuff. Nobody knew what it was. I did end up, unfortunately, leaving that one active because there were a couple of stragglers who hadn't gotten back to me. So we did get charged for one more year of it, but I swear 2025 is my year. That thing is getting shut off and we will never pay for it again. But anyway, like there is value in just digging down to a granular level on this and just going beat by beat, line by line. Make yourself a little list. Here's what the service is, here's how much it costs, here's what it does. And then make yourself a little checklist. Did you talk to even people that you think might not be related to the software? You just never know who signed up for it. And to that end, I did touch on the person who had left our company several years ago, who had a company credit card, who had one charge still lingering on their card. However, as I was cleaning up a lot of these miscellaneous, random, monthly, quarterly, what have you charges, it was really a challenge gaining access to a number of them. And that was because the employee who had set them up under their email address, their phone number. And when somebody's been gone from your company for 3 or more years, the last thing that they really want to do is receive a phone call from you like, hey, how's it been? How's your life? How's your new job? How's whatever? Haven't talked to you in 3+ years, but would you mind I'm going to send you a couple 2-factor authentication text messages. Would you mind just texting me when you get those? Thanks, bye. I don't want to make that call. The person on the other end of the receiving of that call doesn't want to receive it. So it was definitely a bigger project than I realized. Thankfully, companies understand that there is turnover, that you're always going to have issues with this. But if anything, it taught me to make my executives email the admin email, which is great because, again, as a company of 2 people, like if he goes somewhere, then you have bigger problems than did you pay for your Canva subscription for the month. Like, that email address isn't going anywhere. Whereas if I were to leave the company at any point and if things were tied to my email address, if the company shut it off right away, all of a sudden you've lost access to any number of things. So definitely, again, a way bigger project than I thought it was going to be, but very rewarding and satisfying at the end to have gone through every single thing that we needed to keep active and make sure that current contact information was on file. Again, a lot of companies were super helpful, either super responsive by email, super responsive by like chat. A couple of people even had phone numbers, which was great, to be able to say, hey, here's the email address that should be on file. Here's the phone number that you should have, just in case of any future employee turnover, something that people can definitely use and have access to. I touched on this a little bit in my Ask an Assistant episode 9, Phones at Work. I made the mistake several years ago of taking the $100 a month phone reimbursement instead of demanding that they give me a company issued phone. I literally earlier today, like 12 hours ago, I got 2 phone calls from the same person. They called, they asked for Kelsey or whatever, and I just immediately hung up. And I am, in this year, 2024, very judicious with my block button. And before I could even, I hung up with the person, scrolled to my, opened the phone app, hit the recent call button, literally had just pressed this is spam, block, whatever it is. I said, block this number from ever calling me again. They were able to call me back a second time before it took me 3 seconds to block this person. They got right back through and they were like, hey, I'm calling for Kelsey. And I was like, who? And they're just like, is it safe to say this isn't Kelsey? And I was like, yeah, it's not. And they're like, okay. Well, you hung up and I just wanted to make sure. And I was like, yeah, not Kelsey. Okay, bye. It's just like, get out of here. Don't call me back. But yeah, anyway, it's just a drag when your personal information is on file at a company. Ties into the demand an actual company work number. But yeah, just back to the roughly quarterly of it all. It's time for you to review your subscriptions. Make sure that you don't pay for months or years of things that you're not using. Thankfully, most of the things that we were not presently using did not add up to a lot. But there were definitely a couple things that I'm just like, man, what I wouldn't have done with an extra $200 a month or whatever. It makes a difference, and it really compounds over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I've been with my executive for 10 years. And if we had been paying for something the entire time and not using it, that is stake money. That is money for literally anything other than going to a company whose products or services you are no longer using. Again, great for the company whose products and services you are no longer using. This is like a lifetime fitness membership where you sign up and it's impossible to get out of it. Thankfully, there has been a little bit of legislation over the years, at least in the United States. I know the EU and other parts of the world are much better about this. You just call up and say, hey, I want to cancel. And they say, hey, great, you're done. You're not paying anymore. Here in the US, a lot of times you get into some kind of subscription service and you're promising your firstborn child to be able to get out of a contract. So just give everything a once over. This is not your only quarterly task. Like I mentioned up at the top of the episode, episode 8, Ask an Assistant 8, the template refresh, Ask an Assistant episode 20, clean out large files, and now Ask an Assistant episode 30. It's time for you to review your subscriptions. So these are your quarterly tasks. They're going to build over the years as the podcast goes on. I will keep a running list of them for you, maybe even make some kind of little cheat sheet here in the coming weeks. But yeah, that's go forth and audit. Go forth and clean up things that you're no longer using. Go forth and remove the contact information from the person who hasn't worked at your company for several years and just really doesn't want to chat about two-factor authentication. Do everybody a favor. It's well worth it. And plus, if you take the time to do the cleanup, that's the best part is, you take the time to make the investment now. It might take you, depending on the volume, depending on how far back you have to go, might take you a day, might take you the better part of a week, might be something that you kind of chip away at a couple hours a day when you can in between other projects. But I promise you, once you get it under control, then the quarterly touch in of, are we still using these subscriptions? It's not dozens of things that you have to review and say yes or no. It's okay, I saw a new charge for XYZ thing. Are you still using it? then it's like one or two things once a quarter that you're just touching base to make sure that it's still valid, it's still being used, and it's still useful to the person who subscribed and or the company. So yeah, that leaves us where we are for now. As always, would love to hear from you. askanassistant.com. Please, 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 if I leave you with nothing else, please believe in your heart of hearts that I truly, truly believe the only stupid question is the question that you don't ask. No problem is too big, no problem too small, or anything in between. And yeah, it's only stupid if you don't ask. So this is a safe, judgment-free zone. I want you to come. I love an out-of-the-box think. I love an out-of-the-box solution to something. And I would love to know what you're thinking. askanassistant.com anytime. My inbox is open. And yeah, until next time, enjoy the cooler weather if that's what's going on where you are, as it is for me. And stay hydrated as always. Go pet a cat. Go smell some flowers. Give somebody a random high five as you pass them on your way in or out of the office. And take care.